The snow fell in quiet whispers, coating the small western town in a blanket of white that muffled the usual sounds of horses' hooves and wagon wheels. People had gathered in the square, their breath fogging in the icy air, their expressions somber. At the center stood a little girl, her bare feet pressed into the snow, her thin dress doing little to shield her from the cold. In her arms she held a newborn, swaddled in cloth so worn it barely kept the chill away. She clutched the baby tightly, as though it were the only warmth left in her fragile world. A man knelt in front of her. His leather coat was lined with wool, his boots sturdy, his scarf pulled high against his neck. His eyes were softer than the rugged lines of his face suggested, and when he reached out a hand, it was not with authority but with gentleness. He knew children like her, children who carried burdens too heavy for their small shoulders. Behind her, a young woman, perhaps her mother, stood with tears in her eyes, her hands clasped as if holding herself together. Around them, townsfolk shifted uncomfortably, some with pity, others with judgment. The girl trembled, not only from the cold but from fear. She did not know this man kneeling before her. Yet there was something steady in his presence, something that promised he was not there to take but to give. She lowered her gaze to the baby's face, red and wrinkled from crying, and then back to the man. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Please, don't let him die." The man's chest tightened. He had come to town for supplies, not expecting to be pulled into the fragile lives of strangers, but destiny had a way of finding him in the most unlikely of places. He leaned closer, brushing a strand of the girl's hair from her face. "I won't," he said softly. "I promise." The crowd murmured, whispers spreading about who the man was, about why he was kneeling to a girl instead of brushing her aside. But he ignored them. His hand hovered near the child, then gently touched the tiny bundle, feeling the faint warmth of life still pulsing within. "What's his name?" he asked. The girl hesitated. Her eyes filled with tears, and she bit her lip as if the name carried too much weight to say aloud. At last she whispered, "Samuel. After my pa." The man nodded, glancing briefly at the woman behind her, who closed her eyes at the mention of the name. Loss hung heavy between them, loss that had carved away comfort and left only survival. He understood. He too had buried names he once whispered every night. He took a deep breath, snowflakes clinging to his hat and scarf. "Samuel's going to need more than you can give out here, little one. He needs food, warmth, care." His voice trembled with the responsibility he was about to claim. "And so do you." The girl's grip on the baby tightened. "But he's mine to protect." Her words were fragile but fierce, the kind of courage only desperation could forge. The man met her gaze, and for a moment he saw not a child, but a reflection of himself at a younger age, when the world had stripped him bare and demanded he grow faster than he should. Slowly, he placed his hand over hers, steadying the trembling fingers wrapped around the infant. "You've done more than most grown men would. You kept him alive. That makes you braver than you know. But now, let me help." The girl's tears spilled, hot against her frozen cheeks. She looked at the woman behind her, her mother, or perhaps only someone bound to her by circumstance, and saw the same plea reflected there. The woman's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Instead, her silence gave the child her answer. With shaking arms, the girl extended the baby toward the man. It was not surrender but trust, a fragile hope placed into hands that seemed strong enough to carry what she no longer could. The man accepted the infant carefully, as though holding a piece of the girl's very soul. For a long moment, he held the baby against his chest, feeling the small heartbeat, the warmth that promised life even amidst the cold. The girl pressed her face into her hands, sobbing silently as the snow continued to fall. The man reached out again, resting his hand lightly on her shoulder. "You've done enough," he whispered. "Now let me carry the rest." The weeks that followed were not easy. Winter in the frontier did not forgive weakness. The man, whose name was Elias, brought the children and their mother to his small cabin beyond the edge of town. It was modest, built with his own hands years before, when he thought he might share it with someone he loved. That dream had died, leaving him with walls that echoed with silence. But now, for the first time in years, there was life inside them. The baby cried through the nights, his small body struggling to adjust to the harsh world. The girl, who revealed her name was Anna, refused to sleep unless she was close to her brother. She sat beside the cradle, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but her resolve unshaken. Elias often found her there, her tiny fingers clutching the baby's hand. "You need rest," he would tell her, his voice stern but gentle. "I can't," she'd reply, her chin lifting with that stubbornness he admired. "He needs me." And though Elias wanted to insist, he knew better than to break the fragile threads of loyalty that bound the girl to her brother. Instead, he brought her warm blankets, cups of broth, and told her stories by the fire until her eyelids finally closed. The mother, Margaret, remained distant at first, her grief weighing heavily on her. She had lost her husband in the bitter struggle to keep their land, and with him had gone the last of her strength. It was Anna who had carried the weight, Anna who had shielded her newborn brother when Margaret could not. Slowly, under Elias's steady presence, Margaret began to return. She learned to smile again, if only faintly, when Samuel's tiny hand wrapped around her finger. Elias, who had once sworn never to open his heart again, found himself caught in the fragile beauty of this broken family. Each day, he chopped wood, hunted, and worked the land, not for himself anymore, but for the lives now depending on him. The weight did not feel heavy, it felt right. One night, when the fire crackled low and snow pounded against the windows, Anna sat beside him, her small body wrapped in one of his old blankets. She stared into the flames, then whispered, "You didn't have to help us." "Why did you?" Elias looked at her, his face shadowed by the firelight. He thought of the wife he had buried, the child he had never gotten to meet, the home that had turned into a prison of memories. His voice was quiet when he finally answered. "Because once, I wished someone had done the same for me. Because no child should carry the world alone." Anna leaned against his arm, her eyes fluttering shut. "I'll still protect Samuel, even if you're here now." Elias smiled faintly, pressing a hand to her hair. "I know you will, and that's why he'll always be safe." The snow outside raged on, but inside, there was warmth, fragile yet enduring. In the quiet of that small cabin, amidst grief and survival, something new was born. Not just the life of a baby named Samuel, but the beginning of a family stitched together by loss, love, and the courage of a little girl who refused to let go. And as the firelight danced across their faces, Elias realized that perhaps the broken pieces of his past had led him here, to this moment, where he could finally keep a promise, to protect, to love, and to never again let the innocent bear their burdens alone.